France engaged in cyber espionage on Burkina Faso, perceiving it as an easy target. However, Burkina Faso, a nation considered weak by the West, reacted strongly to this incident. Immediately, 4 individuals were arrested and accused of espionage. Despite France's intense pressure to have them returned, Burkina Faso remains determined in its decision. The nation insists that France must be held accountable for its actions, particularly considering the vulnerability of African nations. However, it remains unclear whether France was actually involved in espionage or if it is a misunderstanding. On December 1, 2023, Burkina Faso made headlines by apprehending 4 French officials initially identified as computer maintenance technicians. The situation took a different turn when suspicions of espionage arose, causing a diplomatic rift between the 2 countries. While French diplomatic sources portrayed the individuals as innocent technicians, a Burkinabe source claimed they were intelligence agents. This discrepancy adds complexity to the case, leaving room for speculation and diplomatic tensions. Following the arrests, the French government swiftly protected the detained officials through the French Consulate General. Consular protection is a legal right that allows citizens to seek assistance and protection from their home country's consulate when facing legal issues abroad. The French officials received support during the legal proceedings in Burkina Faso. The French government denied the espionage allegations, maintaining that the individuals were computer maintenance technicians with no ulterior motives. The arrest of the 4 French officials in Burkina Faso raises questions about whether it was a case of espionage or a misunderstanding by Burkina Faso. Similar accusations have surfaced in the arrest of a French national, Martin Ryan, in Azerbaijan on suspicion of espionage on December 4, 2023. This incident suggests a pattern involving French citizens, prompting concerns about possible state-sponsored espionage by France. While the French government vehemently denies such allegations, the recurring nature of these incidents warrants further examination. To better understand the current situation, it is crucial to examine past examples involving French nationals and espionage accusations. Historical context can shed light on whether these incidents are isolated occurrences or part of a broader pattern. In recent years, there have been instances where French citizens faced espionage allegations in different regions. While some cases were resolved without significant diplomatic consequences, others strained relations between France and the countries involved. The recurring accusations of espionage against French nationals raise concerns about the effectiveness of diplomatic efforts in preventing such incidents from recurring. The French government has consistently denied any involvement in espionage activities, asserting that the detained individuals in Burkina Faso and Azerbaijan were engaged in legitimate activities, such as computer maintenance. However, the reasons behind their arrests remain unclear. France's rejection of espionage accusations in Burkina Faso is based on its unwavering commitment to defending the integrity and purpose of its officials. According to a French diplomatic source, the individuals were computer maintenance technicians, and the government emphasizes their purported role in legitimate and routine maintenance work rather than intelligence activities. France categorically denies any implication of espionage and highlights the lack of clarity surrounding the charges against its officials. France has persistently demanded the immediate return of the accused individuals, emphasizing their innocence. Equipped with diplomatic passports and visas, these technicians benefit from consular protection, reinforcing France's position that they were engaged in lawful activities. The urgency behind France's plea for their swift return goes beyond mere diplomatic protocol. It serves as a strong assertion of their innocence and aims to shape the narrative surrounding the arrests, seeking support and sympathy on the global stage. This demand for immediate return carries diplomatic ramifications, and Burkina Faso must carefully handle the situation to avoid further escalating tensions. The speed at which both countries handle the diplomatic fallout will influence their bilateral relations and standing in the international community. A successful and swift return of the accused officials would be seen as a diplomatic triumph for France, bolstering the narrative of innocence. On the contrary, any delays or complications in the process could cast doubt on the legitimacy of their claims and potentially tarnish their international image. The recent arrest of 4 French officials in Burkina Faso has created significant disruptions in the already troubled relationship between the two countries, and its impact on France-Burkina Faso relations remains to be seen. The diplomatic ties between France and Burkina Faso have faced challenges, including Burkina Faso's military coup in September 2022 and the subsequent expulsion of French diplomats. These events strained the delicate relationship between the two nations. The recent arrests have further complicated this fragile diplomatic situation. The impact of the arrests on France-Burkina Faso relations is complex. The existing strain in their ties provides a backdrop for understanding the gravity of the recent arrests. The fallout from the military coup and diplomatic expulsions created an environment of mistrust and unease. The French government denies the espionage allegations against the arrested officials and is pressing for their immediate release. However, this stance has contributed to the tension between the two nations. The question arises as to why France would engage in state-sponsored espionage if the accusations are true. National security concerns often drive espionage motivations. Countries deploy espionage to gather intelligence on potential threats that could compromise their security. This can involve monitoring the military capabilities of other nations and understanding geopolitical dynamics that may impact their safety. However, it is crucial to note that France has not explicitly stated any specific security threats originating from Burkina Faso. The absence of an official mention raises doubts about the driving force behind France's decision to engage in espionage if there were genuine security concerns. The ethics of espionage also come into question when considering the principles of transparency and open communication between nations. Espionage involves gathering secret information without the knowledge or consent of the target country. While intelligence activities can be crucial for national security, it is essential to strike a balance between protecting one's interests and respecting the sovereignty of other nations. Without a clear security threat from Burkina Faso, the motives behind France's espionage activities remain unclear. There are speculation and uncertainty surrounding the issue of espionage, which has led to diplomatic tensions and misunderstandings. One possible reason why France engaged in espionage is its traditional association with defense and national security. Espionage has expanded beyond safeguarding national borders and now includes gaining a competitive edge in economic and trade-related affairs. This involves covertly collecting information about economic policies, trade negotiations, and technological advancements of other countries. In today's interconnected world, economic strength is closely tied to geopolitical influence. Understanding the economic landscape of rival nations provides valuable insights that can influence a country's economic policies, trade agreements, and industrial strategies. However, the ethical implications of economic espionage raise important questions about fair competition and international cooperation. When countries engage in covert activities to gain an economic advantage, it strains the principles of fair competition and mutual respect between nations. Such practices can damage trust and cooperation in international relations. Another reason that could have prompted France to engage in espionage is the dynamic nature of the intelligence game. Countries allocate significant resources to both intelligence gathering and counterintelligence efforts. Counterintelligence aims to identify and neutralize the espionage activities of other nations. This creates a delicate balance of power on the global stage. Understanding the intelligence gathering activities of rival countries is crucial for preventing potential threats. It is important to note that Burkina Faso has not been involved in espionage activities. Despite calls for African nations, including Burkina Faso, to enhance their intelligence and security efforts, There is no evidence suggesting any malicious intent from Burkina Faso towards France. African countries often face unique challenges and may not have the same resources or capabilities as their Western counterparts. It is crucial to recognize that Burkina Faso is not an adversary of France and is not engaged in espionage activities. The question arises, why would Burkina Faso take actions that might invite closer scrutiny from France? The logical conclusion is that such motivations seem unfounded. A noticeable trend has emerged on the African continent, with a growing inclination towards partnerships with China and Russia. This shift has not gone unnoticed by Western nations, leading them to speculate about Africa's intentions. A striking example of this geopolitical tension is the case of Burkina Faso, where France, a traditional Western ally, engaged in espionage activities. Africa's increasing affinity for China and Russia has become a cause for concern in Western capitals. This departure from historical alliances has raised eyebrows and triggered a sense of suspicion among Western nations. There is a palpable fear and a perception that Africa might be plotting something against the West. France, as a key player in African affairs, has focused on Burkina Faso due to these concerns. The growing relations between Burkina Faso and Russia, particularly in the military and nuclear domains, have become a focal point of Western anxiety. France, in particular, views this as a potential threat to its regional interests. Therefore, the decision to conduct espionage activities in Burkina Faso can be seen as a reactive measure to assess the nature and extent of this growing partnership. However, it is crucial to emphasize that no justification fully supports espionage. Even if concerns exist about a nation's shifting alliances, resorting to espionage raises ethical and diplomatic questions. The key question is, if a nation does not directly threaten another's security, what justifies engaging in espionage? China's increasing influence through economic investments and infrastructure projects has provided an alternative to Western aid and partnerships. Similarly, Russia has sought to strengthen its ties with African nations, establishing itself as a significant player in the region. For Burkina Faso, the deepening collaboration with Russia in military and nuclear spheres has raised concerns in the West. The fear encompasses not only economic ties, but also strategic and security dimensions. As a result, France, with its historical investments in the region, chose to employ espionage to gain insights into the nature of these burgeoning alliances. It is crucial to recognize the legitimate security concerns that nations may have. Observing geopolitical shifts is a standard practice in a world where regional stability has global implications. However, the challenge lies in distinguishing between genuine security concerns and unfounded fears that may lead to actions like espionage. In the case of Burkina Faso, the question arises, is the nation truly a threat to the security of Western nations, especially France? Without clear evidence of a direct threat, the espionage activities appear to be a preemptive measure driven by suspicions rather than concrete evidence. This raises ethical questions about respect for national sovereignty and the right of nations to form alliances based on their interests. Furthermore, the dynamics of international relations necessitate a nuanced understanding of soft power and influence instead of resorting to espionage. Western nations can try diplomatic approaches to engage with African nations that are strengthening ties with non-traditional allies. Dialogue, cooperation, and understanding the motivations behind these shifts may lead to more positive outcomes compared to covert operations. While it is important for nations to protect their interests, a balance must be struck between security concerns and respecting the autonomy of other nations. Engaging in espionage, especially without a clear and immediate threat, risks damaging diplomatic relations and the principles of international cooperation. Critics argue that the West's involvement in Burkina Faso is driven by a self-centered agenda, rather than a genuine concern for the nation's security. They believe that the West exploited Burkina Faso without considering its security interests. This perspective gains support from historical instances where Western powers have been accused of exploiting African nations for their own gains, often at the expense of local stability. The recent espionage activities reveal a miscalculation on the part of the West, as Burkina Faso has proven to be resilient and capable of defending itself against external interference. Burkina Faso's response to Western espionage underscores the importance of recognizing the agency and capabilities of African nations. It challenges the narrative that African nations are passive recipients of external influence and exploitation. Burkina Faso's ability to protect its security interests sends a clear message that African nations cannot be underestimated and can effectively counter attempts at violation. There is a prevailing sentiment urging a crucial shift in international relations, calling for the West to treat all nations, especially those in Africa, as equals. Critics argue that the West's historical approach towards African nations has often been marked by a sense of superiority and an assumption of authority. This mindset perpetuates a dynamic where Western powers dictate terms, disregarding African nations' unique circumstances, aspirations, and capabilities. The call for equality demands moving away from this paternalistic attitude and recognizing that African nations have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. The idea of equality goes beyond mere words. It advocates for tangible changes in how diplomatic, economic, and security matters are approached. Western nations should not audaciously engage in espionage on African nations without expecting consequences. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think anything can justify France's espionage, their shock at France's audacity, and their opinions on whether Burkina Faso is planning a trap against the West or France?